Mr. Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First off, thank all of you for your participation in this, because what we're doing is recreating what occurred so we can find out whether or not what occurred was proper and how to address it. Ms. Romero, there were a number of people who threw political accusations when this first started, and I wanted to ask you a question that I think should help us in dissolving the political tension, and that is, you are a President Obama appointee, are you not?
I am.
Thank you. According to the SEC website, November 18, 2012, the Securities and Exchange Commission charged former Quadrangle Group principal Stephen Ratner, yourself, with participating in a widespread kickback scheme to obtain investments from New York's largest pension fund. I'm going to ask consent that the portions of the SEC website concerning those charges be entered into the record, and the full text of the complaint on the kickback scheme and the pension fund.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. Ratner, did you pay a settlement in that matter?
Yes.
What was it? What was the amount of that settlement?
It was about a little over $6 million.
I think it's, according to their website, $6.2 million that you paid to settle that claim of a kickback scheme with respect to a pension fund. Mr. Ratner, you indicated that the decisions that were applied with respect to the pensions were those of commercially reasonable. Could you define commercially reasonable for me?
Commercially reasonable in our minds would be decisions that a private actor would make in order to ensure, in this particular case, that money that was being invested wisely.
When you considered that private actor, would you consider a private actor that was involved in a kickback scheme for pension funds, or those that had not been? You don't have to answer that, Mr. Ratner.
Thank you.
Ms. Bovberg, you were in Dayton, and you did an excellent job describing the GAO report, and I greatly appreciate your distinction of that your report is not, as Ms. Romero's is, a detailed analysis of documents and records requested from the government and the Treasury Department and reviewed. You did, in your report, specifically dedicate a section to, I believe it is on page 9, the issue of Treasury's multiple roles. When I did my opening, I indicated that part of the concern in all this is that Treasury, through TARP, became multiple people. I mean, that Treasury is on the board of the PBGC. Treasury became new GM. Treasury became the bondholders and the some of the equity holders. You indicated this. You said in previous reports we also have examined the challenges posed to Treasury due to its multiple roles as a private pension regulator and a GM shareholder, as well as having its secretary serve on the PBGC board. Now, you testified earlier, which is why I want to clarify this. You said, well, PBGC viewed this normally. Now, you've not reviewed all the emails that we have and that Ms. Romero has, so the word normally I'm a little concerned about. So let's just go back to what I recall you having said in Dayton and end it with this. In Dayton, you said those Treasury's multiple roles did have the appearance of a conflict of interest from which you were concerned and noted in your report. Is that still accurate today?
Yes, and I'd like to ask Ms. Clowers to jump in, because she leads our auto work at GAO and was probably, in her report, was the first place.
We'll get to that in a minute, because I only have 5 minutes, and I have to get back to Ms. Romero, but we'll take your answer for the record. Ms. Romero, in the GAO report, they state this sentence, well, in their testimony today, they say, as we reported in 2011, Treasury officials said, which is why the distinction of GAO looked at public documents, that while Treasury did not explicitly approve or disapprove of GM's agreeing to honor previously negotiated top-up agreements with some unions, it agreed that GM had solid commercial reasons, which is that distinction that Mr. Ratner tried to explain to us of what the definition of commercially reasonable is. In your written testimony today, I believe on page 44, you state that the auto team made it clear, no, that was another provision, that they specifically did approve of them and played a role. And could you talk about those two roles? In your report, you talk about the two things. One, that as the purchaser, they had a construct in the agreement that required that issues that were over $100 million and that related to pensions must be approved by them. And secondly, from the dialogue that you reviewed, that you understand that they were involved. So could you explain those two issues to me as to how that statement that GAO looked in the public records is not accurate?
So, yeah, let me talk about what we found. This is what I opened with in my opening statement. There was no way for Treasury's role to be advisory. The TARP loan agreement from 2008 sets up basically two roles for Treasury. For the big things, like things over $100 million or big decisions like the collective bargaining agreement, Treasury has the approval rights. They are the decider. There's other things where Treasury would just give advice to GM. The top-up only appears in the collective bargaining agreement. It's not some separate agreement. And the discussion of the top-up has been confusing so far because it's been as if the top-up was somehow a separate agreement that was separately negotiated, and GM made a decision on it and came to the auto team and said, we'd like to do this. None of those facts are what we found to have actually happened. It appears in the collective bargaining agreement. The other part of this, not just Treasury's rights to approve the collective bargaining agreement, Treasury became the purchaser in bankruptcy, and that changed everything as well. Mr. Miller, in his written testimony, and he was GM's bankruptcy lawyer, says that the U.S. Treasury acted in the same manner as other secured creditors would act in selecting the assets it would purchase and liabilities it would assume. And that's what Mr. Wilson told us, and that's what GM officials told us, that GM officials told us we weren't in control. We could make recommendations, but it's ultimately up to the purchaser. An obligation that would be assumed would be the collective bargaining agreement and all of the obligations that were in it. Therefore, it was Treasury's role, direct role, to make that decision as the purchaser, just like they did with any other obligation that the purchaser took on.
Thank you for the additional time. I see my time has expired. I look forward to the second round.